Yeah, and it was such an important movie for so many different reasons for the superhero genre, right? It's coming off like a decades long worth of development following the hit that was Superman from 1978 starring Christopher Reeve. Naturally, when you have a hit like Superman movie, the next inclination is we got to make a great Batman movie. And the buildup was insane. Tim Burton doesn't really hop onto this project till 1986. And this is even fascinating because he's coming off Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And Ricky, did you know that was directed by Tim Burton?
I did.
Have you seen that movie?
No.
And it's just so unlike the vibe of Tim Burton that we've come to know today. Yes, it has some creepy vibes to it, but like you don't think Pee-wee's Big Adventure and say, okay, that guy's going to direct Batman and go on to be one of the
Right.
most like distinct style directors that has been in Hollywood for the last 4 decades.
Yeah, definitely not. And like Pee-wee's Big Adventure, like 1985, like that was his directorial debut. And that's just so weird to look at, where you also following that you have Beetlejuice.
Right.
And we talked about that on the pod before. Definitely looking back on that movie, not acceptable today. They're making a legacy sequel out of it, of course. But again, that's where we get that's where we get the connection of Michael Keaton and Tim Burton. So we wouldn't have 1989 Batman without Beetlejuice, and let
Right.
alone Pee Wee's Big Adventure, because like Pee Wee's Big Adventure was a big hit. It was like you could hate on it, but it was a big hit. So you have that, and then Beetlejuice confirmed it, and then Warner Bros. Were like, all right, this guy is certified, legitimate. Let's throw him in for the Batman. So yes, we could look back on pre Batman 1989 at Tim Burton and be like, what the heck was he doing? But it got him to where he is. So you have to respect it.
Yeah, you got some like really unproven artists where you have Tim Burton directing off Pee-wee's Big Adventure, then Beetlejuice, Michael Keaton known for his comedies, and people writing into Warner Brothers, literally writing letters showing disapproval for the casting of Michael Keaton as Batman. But then you have it anchored by this A-list, A-plus list superstar with Jack Nicholson, who they wanted since the early 80s to play this iconic character of the Joker. I want to go into those castings a little bit later on because I thought the best way to structure this was to actually go through like the development of this movie, the castings of this movie, how it came to be. Because, like I said before, this is one of the most fun movies to just look back and see how it happened and also how it impacted future Batman movies, right? That seem to be worshipped by audiences today. But I just wanted to go into Ricky Flex, your relationship to Batman 1989. You said you've seen it countless times. You said you were kind of thrown off watching it this time. What is your relationship to this movie and growing up with it, I should say?
Growing up with it as a kid, our dad used to show this to us a lot. It was on TV a lot. Used to watch it a lot for good reason. Big comic book guy, big Batman guy. But it seemed like I would always watch, like I would always, as a kid, like watch pre the Joker origin scenes, like when Jack Nicholson, like before he's the Joker, you know, and it always like kind of scared me a bit when I was a little kid, and then I would always catch the ending, the iconic ending of this movie, and the laughing track beeping heart chest toy with Jack Nicholson's Joker, and be scared as well after that. And also, I would just say, kind of surrounding that is also how dark this movie was, like legitimately dark looking at it. And I think this time around, it wasn't as dark as I remembered it, but it still is dark. And I did like it. I did like it. I think some people don't, but I think it does work. But overall, just as a kid, first few times I watched this movie, I just remember not being scared, but just being like on edge a little bit and kind of freaked out, creeped out a little bit from Jack Nicholson. And that's like kind of the point. And I think it came off well. So I think it worked. And I think today I definitely don't look at it like that at all. I kind of look at it less fondly, but overall it still works.
Yeah, we like this was on our TVs probably once a month growing up. Whether it was on like an AMC or an HBO, it just seems like it was always in circulation. And it's because our dad was a huge fan of this movie. more so than Batman Returns. Batman Returns is even darker than Batman 1989. I also think that we had a strong relationship with it because it has such a strong tie-in with Batman the Animated Series that comes out in the early 90s. It takes the riff off of the iconic Danny Elfman theme and puts it into the best theme song in the history of television with Batman the Animated Series. And it kind of carries over that darker character that Batman 1989 establishes and eventually turns into like this smash animated show that has one of the cult classic movies with Batman Mask of the Phantasm and created this darker form of Batman that eventually morphs into like the Nolan trilogy into what you got with Zack Snyder and then eventually Matt Reeves. And I think alongside this movie, like Batman personally, it's my favorite movie character that's ever existed. You know, it's just someone that I worship in pop culture. We also had Batman Forever that was always on our TV growing up, even
Yep.
more so than Batman and Robin. It was just something about it. It was a little bit lighter. Our parents were okay with us watching it all the time. I was a big fan of Robin, so it's like I like to see the Batman and Robin dynamic. Can't wait for Brave and the Bold. But just those two movies seem like they were always in circulation. Batman and Robin, Batman Forever, excuse me, and then Batman 1989, right?
Yeah, I would say Batman and Robin's up there though. Like Batman and Robin was always in circulation. It wasn't good. We all knew it wasn't good,
Even
but
when
we
we were like
still
4, we
watched
knew
it.
it wasn't good.
But
Yeah.
we watched it, and we watched it, and we watched it countless times because it's the Batman. It's
And this
Batman and Robin.
And this character, though, from 1989 looks so cool. And the logo was amazing. It was the yellow spray painted with the black like bat. It we're gonna talk about the merchandise sales for this movie because it almost hits 1 billion before the movie even comes out. And it seems like that shirt, you go into any Kohl's, Walmart, right? Target, that is probably the shirt that's front and center in like like those the what's it called? I don't know what kind of shirts you call them. Like the brand like
Vintage.
the DC like the logo like superhero like pop culture shirts that they have. Batman logo 1989 is always front and center, not the Reeves verse, not uh the Nolan trilogy, not what Snyder did. It doesn't matter. It's the what everyone comes back to is that circular logo with the bat inside. And Ricky Flex, I was thinking, is there like a shirt related to a movie that is worn more or has been bought by audiences more as a piece of merchandise? Superman, maybe.
Superman. Uh, yeah, Superman. I would say Superman would be the comic book character that would probably beat that over like a Spider-Man or something like that, or Captain America, perhaps.
I was trying to think of like a Star Wars shirt, maybe like a Darth Vader like type of like
No,
face on it or something. But it's just the Batman logo. It's so prevalent from a logo that debuted in the late 80s.
yeah, I would say for logos, Superman first, but like Batman would be close,
Mm-hmm. Um, I
and Captain
also
America.
So obviously this movie means a lot to us. What did you catch anything like watching it this time? You knew we were going to talk on the podcast that like stuck out to you while you were watching it. Something that maybe you didn't pick up on earlier, or saying like, "Oh wow, like this really like it hasn't aged well," or really, though that was impressive for a movie made in the late '80s. What like caught your eye on this latest watch?
Okay, well, positively, I'll say I liked how they focused it on the Joker. I
Yeah.
think I picked that up more so than in previous instances where Jack Nicholson was arguably the main character. Like, there's obviously you'll get into it when we talk about some interesting facts here, but he was adamant he wanted to be top billing in this movie, and he's
Hmm.
not playing the Batman. So he wanted to be top billing. He almost has as much screen time, if not more. You'll correct me if I'm wrong there. So that I kind of saw that in this rewatch that I didn't really I noticed that he was in a lot of the movie other times, but I liked it a lot more this time around. How much screen time we got his origin story, not Batman's origin story, because we know it. This one, they changed it up from the comics. They had this Joker in his past kill Bruce Wayne's parents. That wasn't in the original comics. And they gave him an origin story, which wasn't in the original comics. You think back to The Dark Knight with Heath Ledger, famously saying different origin stories. Like, you're not supposed to know his origin story. So this was kind of a twist on that. Liked everything about that. So on the rewatch, positively, I'll say that. But negatively, definitely a lot cornier than I remember. A
Hmm.
cornier with the 80s stuff, and particularly like the Prince song. dancing in the art museum, like
Party
that
Man,
party man. God, what's his name? Um, Robert Wool's character, like
Knox.
Knox, didn't
I like
like him.
Knox. Come on, dude. Come on.
Like he's good in Bull Durham. Didn't like him as much here.
He's a great that guy.
Yeah, and I would just say going along with that, the movie was at its best when it was just going between Batman and Joker, and then when you're getting Kim Basinger and him Knox just in the mix here, it just kept ruining the pacing and the flow of the movie. And I think that also was just a big negative, I would say, on this rewatch. Even though, hey, Kim Basinger, like in my heart, always for LA Confidential, Oscar winner, always will be a fan of her. But I would just say, like, I think it was a weaker part in this movie on this rewatch for me.
Kim Basinger definitely is a weak part of this movie. I would agree with that. She was actually cast like on short notice because Sean Young couldn't do the movie, so she had to step in late stages. So maybe that played into the performance a little
Sean
bit.
Young, Blade Runner,
Yeah,
original Blade Runner.
and yeah, good shout. A lot of people think that's a dude. By the way,
Yeah,
I just
I
said
just
that.
wanted to
Yeah.
clear that up
Yeah,
in
no,
case people didn't
we did
know.
jump in the DeLorean. A lot of people are like our age. They were in the back seat. They might not know who Sean Young is. It feels like we're doing a Hollywood tour saying, oh, it's this person, this person, this person. But Robert Wool, I did within the deep dive research I did, he was supposedly supposed to die in the film, but they didn't have him die because Tim Burton and company liked his performance in the movie and they like the what he brought to it. And I will say, he is like he's a laugh a second type of character.
Yes.
Okay, he's joke on joke. But I think this movie it plays into 1978 Superman, but they also want to make a darker Batman story that's adapting stories from The Killing Joke with the origins of the Joker, and then also The Dark Knight Returns, right, with Frank Miller, that graphic novel. They want to make a darker Batman than what we got in the 1960s TV series, but also you want to make it kind of welcoming like Superman was. And so, like, you have that campiness, but also the darkness that Gotham brought. It really is a bridge between the 80s like optimistic blockbuster movie making and eventually what we get with later superhero films. It's a bridge. And I think Robert Wool is like obviously the campy aspect of it, but the Jack Nicholson character is the perfect embodiment of that, where it's like he can be 1 second very terrifying, frying someone with their entire skin getting peeled off, or he's going to be throwing out these like fake chatter bites, like toys that are just like faking laughs, or he's putting out a fake hand that Kim Basinger is grabbing and then she falls off like the ledge. It just seems like he is kind of a mixture of both. And when you think of like what people enjoy and like what they're used to, he brings that, but also the darkness of a Tim Burton type of movie, you know? So I thought Jack Nicholson, without him in this movie, is nowhere near as successful or lucrative.
Yeah, I would completely agree. I definitely not as lucrative, and we'll get into how lucrative it made Jack Nicholson
Mm-hmm.
later on. But it just this movie again, just thinking about the before it was released and the issues with the fans and getting made and such, like Michael Keaton, Mr. Mom himself, Beetlejuice himself, Night Shift with Henry Winkler, like not necessarily like all about the comedy, not necessarily who you would think of playing the Batman. And then like Tim Burton, Pee Wee's Big Adventure, and Beetlejuice, not necessarily someone you're thinking of directing the Batman. So it's like, how are you going to make this huge comic book character like agreeable with fans, like this movie agreeable with fans, that so they could buy in? And they make Joker the lead. To be honest, again on this rewatch, that's really what stuck out to me. The lead, and you cast. I wouldn't say he's the biggest actor in Hollywood at the time, as in on a heater, because like in the 80s, Jack Nicholson was still doing a lot of work, but it wasn't like it was 70s Jack Nicholson, let alone 60s. Like you think of One of the Cuckoo's Nest in 76, Chinatown 74, The Shining 80. So
Yeah.
like it's just like this
He
isn't the
had his
same.
heyday.
Yeah, this is past his prime, but he's still front row at the Oscars. He's still Jack. He's front row at the Lakers, Showtime Lakers. This is still Jack Nicholson. He is Hollywood. He's Mr. Hollywood.
Mhm.
So casting him in this movie back when Hollywood stars, A-listers, were true A-listers, not like it is today, where kind of you're only drawn to the box office by comic book heroes, comic book movies, or big IP. No, no, no. Back in the day, you're drawn by the A-listers, and Jack Nicholson was drawing the biggest audiences, the biggest box office figures, and they needed him so badly in this movie. And on this rewatch, it makes sense.
You could tell how bad they wanted him by like the stories that we're going to tell regarding his casting. They wanted him since literally the late 80s after Superman 1978 came out. They like we need Jack Nicholson as the Joker. It's like almost how like people want Willem Dafoe to play the Joker so badly nowadays. Let's multiply that by 10 for Jack Nicholson during the 80s. And eventually he does say yes under a bunch of stipulations. But yeah, and also you bring up like Jack Nicholson, like almost later stage, past his prime a little bit. It's almost like Brando that's in Superman, right? As Jor-El. And except you only have Jor-El for like 10 minutes of the movie. Meanwhile, here you have Jack Nicholson on the screen, only 15 seconds less than Michael Keaton as Batman. And I think that was, we'll get into the casting right now because the screen time, this is how it balanced out, Ricky Flex. Bruce Wayne / Batman is on screen for 32 minutes and 30 seconds in this movie. The Joker is on screen for 32 minutes and 15 seconds.
Boom.
15 seconds less than Bruce Wayne. And I think this is a way to kind of protect the Michael Keaton casting, right? It seems like people were in uproar following that casting, obviously, we just talked about. But Jack Nicholson, once again, you talk about A-list leniency and reliability. They're like, okay, if we're gonna have all these stipulations, we're gonna bend over backwards for this guy. Like he's the guy who's gonna make people go to this movie. And it showed the power of the Joker, even in his like quote unquote debut appearance. You could say Cesar Romero back in 1966 with the Batman movie that came off the TV series. But here it's like a different type of Batman film, one that we're really blasting off in the blockbuster sphere. That's going to be a catalyst for superhero movies for years to come. But yeah, that's what the timing is kind of shaken out to be. I'm honestly not shocked at all.
No, but like I think also going back to the fan reaction before this came out to the news is like I think the 60s the 60s Batman series with Adam West and say Cesar Romero and all the other people in that movie is more of a comedy. Like you look back at that
It was a comedy.
Yeah. And like Ray Liotta, someone that was linked to play the Batman after Something Wild, didn't want to do it because of the 60s series and in saying that he was afraid it was going to be like that. And that's what a lot of fans were thinking. So like you can't knock these fans at the time for kind of like not having faith when they think of the series. They think of Tim Burton, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and Beetlejuice, Michael Keaton, Night Shift comedy, Mr. Mom, and Beetlejuice comic character. You're thinking this is Adam West 2.0 almost. So I understand the backlash this was getting at the time.
And it's such a high profile hero that a lot of people like this is the age of comic books too, where people like comic book stores are popping up left and right and people are adoring Frank Miller's iteration of Batman. They want to see that type of Batman on the big screen. And here are some of the actors that were up to play Bruce Wayne, and somehow Michael Keaton, due to the backing of by Tim Burton, ends up with this iconic role. People up for the role: Mel Gibson, Kevin Costner, Charlie Sheen, Tom Selleck, who felt like he was everywhere. It seems like Magnum PI kind of robbed him of a lot of different roles. Could have been Indiana Jones. Bill Murray, like I mentioned before, Harrison Ford, and then Dennis Quaid, all up for Batman, wanted by the studio, foot down by Tim Burton saying he wanted Michael Keaton. People are upset with the Keaton casting. So Ricky, people wrote letters to the studio. Right. Imagine that in this day and age where we can just send a tweet, we can just drop into like a major studio's DM and just like voice displeasure. Imagine being so upset by a casting that you were writing letters to studios. It feels like this might have happened actually with Ezra Miller. People might have actually written letters saying we don't want him to be in the movie. But like that just
social media helps though.
It's just the idea of taking the effort to do that. And what ends up happening? So this movie is produced by a very famous producer, Ricky Flicks, and it was portrayed by one of our favorite actors, Bradley Cooper in Licorice Pizza. John Peters produced many blockbusters in the 80s. So what he did in response to all of these letters that were sent is that he put a makeshift trailer, threw something together, and then released it immediately during Christmas. And it was just like an assemblage of scenes that didn't even have music, but it blew audiences away.
What does this remind you of?
Yeah, the Batman, dude. The
Robert
Batman.
Pattinson, Twilight. Oh, he's playing
It's
the
just,
Batman. Matt Reeves.
yeah,
Like what we? Oh wait, we only have 25% footage, but we're gonna show you the trailer at DC Fandom. This new thing that DC's trying to do. What? And Nirvana inspiration. Something in the way. What is going on here? They even show us the Batmobile. They got us the same way.
incredible anticipation grows for this movie. It ends up doing $750 million worth of merchandise sales before the movie even comes out.
The hype.
It's and it is, if I was them, I would have just shown the first scene of this movie. It's one of my favorite scenes. With the introduction of Bruce Wayne, excuse me, Batman, and him dropping down with the cape, right? Like gone from like with the wingspan flying from left to right. And then when he has the iconic "I'm Batman" line, or it's the "I want you to tell your friends who I am," and
Yeah.
then the guy's saying, "Who
Who
are
are
you?"
you?
Perfect drop. Shout out Andor. That character, I forgot that actor's name. I should look it up to be courteous to him. But I would have just shown that, and that would have had me hooked. And then as it goes for like Jack Nicholson, the people that were up for this role, first off, Robin Williams wasn't really up for the role, but he pined for it. He kept on asking the studio about the movie. He wanted to play the Joker, but the people that were actually up for it, they always wanted Nicholson. They were afraid they couldn't back pocket him, so instead they looked at people like Tim Curry, Rocky Horror Picture Show. They looked at David Bowie, which would have been a very interesting casting.
Mm.
John Lithgow, who actually went to Tim Burton and said, "I don't want to be in this movie somehow." He literally said, "I don't want to be a part of this." You talk about like people that were like connected to the Batman 1966 series. They're unsure about this, the unreliability of comic book movies back then. He wants out. Ray Liotta, you brought up, okay? And then James Woods, which also would be a great Joker. So that's the
James Woods
list
not
there, Ricky
terrible.
Flicks. Do you think
I,
anyone there like stuck out where it's like, wow, if Nicholson backed out, I wouldn't mind this guy?
well, Robin Williams, like he's like the one where he has like the famous story where he refused to work with Warner Brothers after this.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like he's like, oh, you guys used me to get Nicholson. Like he just used Robin Williams, saying Robin Williams would do this to Jack Nicholson. And then when they told Robin Williams you weren't going to get it, but they wanted him to play the Riddler later on, he was like, no, I'm not working with you until you apologize to me. So that would have been the interesting one out of the rest of those names. I think Woods at the time, it's just tough when you look at James Woods now, like after all the parodies
Dropped
and
off in the mid 90s, you know?
yeah, it's just it's tough looking at it now, but it would have worked in '89. The others I just wouldn't get. I think Ray Liotta would have been good actually, but a little darker. It would have had to been a
He's got the
darker, even
laugh.
darker role. Yeah, he has the laugh, he has the acting chops and the dark side to it. But I just don't think if they're gonna approach this movie like they did with that comedic, like what's the word I'm looking for? Not cringy, but like just
Little
he's
camp
out
to it.
there. Yeah, like Jack Nicholson, you know, he amped it up. I don't think Ray Liotta would have amped it up.
Yeah.
I might have preferred that, honestly, at times in this movie.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like Jack Nicholson seemed like he was born to play this role. Like when he was on screen in this movie, like it was must watch. It was like you have Michael Keaton on his own, and he's pretty suave, he's pretty cool. He can hold the screen for a little bit, but you're just waiting for moments where you get Nicholson Joker.
Well, that brings the question: is this the top 5 Jack Nicholson role?
This is honestly, when I was growing up, because obviously we have an association with Batman from when we were younger. Like this is the Nicholson performance I immediately think of. But as I get older, I'm much more aware of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Chinatown and The Shining, and that's definitely 3 of the top 5 right there. Honestly, and I would say with the iconic status of the character now, looking back and people saying, "Wow, look how well he did it back then, and look what it's morphed into and evolved to at this point with 2 other actors playing this character and winning Oscars for it." And people always call back Nicholson. This has got to be a top 5 Nicholson role.
I think so, just because of the importance of the character. But I think you said the top 3; those are like solidified in there. But like, and like you think about Jack Nicholson post this role, after this, he kind of is only in minor roles going forward, like A Few Good Men. Like he's a supporting
That might be
character, of
top five
course,
too, though.
but like he's barely in it. But like that's so good, he might be top five. And like as good as it gets, he's in the whole movie and he's good in it. But that's like 97, and like he kind of like drops up. Like The Departed actually is another one.
But he wasn't. I don't know.
But yeah,
That's not top five. That
yeah.
I don't
But
think
like
it is.
but the cultural importance of this role, and he's awesome in it. Yeah, I think this is top five. I'm just bringing up some other arguments. This is top five for me too.
And it's amazing that we put it in that category of like a top five Jack Nicholson performance because it seemed like he was so reluctant to do this movie and he had to be pretty much begged. So he had a bunch of stipulations and conditions for him taking this role. He wanted top billing. So if you watch this movie, it doesn't say Michael Keaton's name first, despite him playing the titular role as Batman. Instead, it says Jack Nicholson first. And we already brought up the screen time where only is 15 seconds less than the hero here. He also wanted a portion of the film's earnings that included merchandise sales. And we talked about it, $750 million worth before the movie even came out. And he went through his own shooting schedule that I think only went for about 3 weeks. Okay. So we're about to talk about how much money he made for less than a month's worth of work. He also, because he was getting merchandise sales and he was getting some of the box office percentage here, he reduced his standard $10 million fee to $6 million. And he ended
Still a
up
lot for the
making,
time.
and it's a lot of mystery about how much money he actually made from this. And it ranges from $50 million to $100 million. Okay. So he could have made upwards of $100 million for this role of working less than a month. That is nuts.
It's one of the biggest payouts an actor's ever had.
Yeah. And we talk about like Robert Downey Jr. and how much he made for like the late Avenger movies. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's like it just should be compared to what Jack Nicholson's cut was for Batman 1989. Still
Yeah,
reaping.
in 1989.
And like those
In addition,
merchandise sales like never halted. Like they're still going. Like he's probably getting money from Batman 1989, just not from residuals for the film being on AMC or HBO or Max or
yeah,
whatever it's on.
I don't know how that works now. I really don't with like the merchandise sales because there've been so many Batman and Jokers post. Like I don't really know. Maybe it's like a certain time period that they get. Maybe like a 1 year. But yeah, like you can't deny like this kind of set the precedent going forward for like because like not only did this set the precedent for superhero movies and the importance of them, but also for the actors and like, oh, I want a piece of the box office of the merchandise. And it helps out for actors going forward.
100%. Um, in terms of awards, he got a Golden Globe nomination for playing the Joker. He did not get an Academy Awards nomination like Heath Ledger and Joaquin Phoenix did for the role. Those two obviously won for Best Supporting and Best Lead Actor, respectively. He gets a Golden Globe, doesn't win, but this movie gets one Oscar. It won the Academy Award for Best Art Direction. I don't even think that's a category anymore, Ricky Flex.
Yeah, I don't think so
It's not
either.
titled like that. It
Yeah,
might have been rephrased and they might have segmented it into different like awards, but Best Art Direction, I don't believe is an Oscar anymore.
no, but I think it's like visual effects now, which is funny because this age did not like visual effects wise did not age well.
But like that's kind of where I wanted to go next because the art direction, I think of what they did with Gotham City here, and it was telling you how dark of a movie this was going to be, or at least a change of pace for a superhero movie this is going to be just by the setting of it. And it was shot in England on like a 50-acre yard, a 50-acre plot of land with set designs, like 6 different set designs for it, and they absolutely nail the dark Gotham vibe. You feel like it's a crime-ridden city. The fog is basically hovering around the city at all points. Sometimes it's a rough look when they zoom out and they look at the entire city. It looks very fake, but when you're in there, it has like almost a noir feel. That feels like that. Like obviously, you talk about the campiness and everything, and like the some things that like the Nicholson character or the Robert Wool character as Knox, but there is a lot of scariness and there's a lot of shrieking and there seems like a lot of horrors and like secrets that are a part of this city. And a huge part of that, it's got to be the art direction, but also the score from Danny Elfman. I think they go hand in hand so well together and really put you in the movie before you even saw Batman.
Yeah, the score I think should have been nominated as well. Danny Elfman also drew like I wouldn't say Prince, but like I remember that was a riff too. I remember reading about between him and Prince and like Danny Elfman's involvement there. But yeah, like Pinewood Studios in England, this looked like England. The Batman that was just came out with Robert Pattinson, Matt Reeves, also set in England. So it just makes sense that this again won an Oscar. And it, England's just dark. It's just rainy all the time. It's dark. It's not sunny a lot. Like it just makes sense. And I'll say this: I know like if Jack Nicholson was going for an Oscar here, it seemed like it would be Best Actor, leading actor, because that's the Golden Globe that you just mentioned.
Top billing.
But if they were smart, they would probably go supporting actor because at least I don't know if he would win. Denzel won for Glory that year, but like Dan Aykroyd got nominated for Driving Miss Daisy.
Yeah,
Like
you weren't gonna beat Denzel, but you definitely it was a better
he would have
performance than Dan
got, but he
Aykroyd.
would have gotten another Oscar nomination to his name if they just campaigned for him in supporting acting.
Right. Not a great strategy from Warner Brothers there. Yeah, and the score from Danny Elfman, man, it's one of the best Superman, superhero themes of all time. We talk about how iconic it is for Batman, the animated series. It's so recognizable, along with the Superman theme. I also put like the Raimi, also by Danny Elfman, by the way, Raimi, like Spider-Man, like theme in there as well. He might be the GOAT when it comes to superhero scores, alongside guys like Michael Giacchino, who did uh he did Spider-Man No Way Home and obviously the Batman, right? So it's like though, and John Williams you got to throw in there for Superman. That's like the big three, I would say, for superhero themes.
Yeah,
Hans Zimmer also.
I was thinking
God
Hans
damn it.
Zimmer. I was thinking Hans Zimmer.
Damn it.
Nolan.
Man.
Uh,
What is Superman, Batman? Those are the two most iconic. I think you kick out Raimi and you put in Hans Zimmer, actually. That's your three. Like the Dark Knight
Spider-Man's.
theme.
I know. God, that's tough. That's a
Mhm.
tough answer. I don't think you could discredit Hans Zimmer. So
Maybe
yeah,
we just let's make it a Mount Rushmore, and then we do
that's
Elfman
easier.
on there, and we kick out Giacchino.
I think that's what you have to do. Let the Giacchino Batman simmer. It's only been a couple years, or a
Dum
year.
dum
Let it
dum
simmer.
dum.
Elfman, Zimmer. Yeah, let's do
Yeah,
that.
that's your four. John Williams. You can't ignore John. Like if you
Yeah,
exclude
John
John
Williams.
Williams, you're excluding cinema. Speaking of like Hans Zimmer and like The Dark Knight, I didn't realize the homages to Batman 1989 that The Dark Knight has. Did you catch any of those homages? Because like the joke when Jack Nicholson becomes Joker and he goes to Carl Grissom's men after he's killed Carl Grissom, he sits at that table and he fries that dude. It feels like that is the Heath Ledger scene when he kills the guy with a pencil and he introduces himself to all the underground criminals of Gotham, the big hitters. It seems like a direct homage to that scene, right?
A
It's
little
like
bit.
the full on character introduction, but also I was thinking in the beginning of the third act, before they enter the church, it's Joker standing in front of the Batwing coming at him a million miles an hour, and the Joker daring the
Definitely.
Batwing to come at him. That's the same thing as you have the Dark Knight, where you have Heath Ledger basically daring or basically begging for Christian Bale's Batman to run him over with his motorcycle. It felt like those were direct homages. That's something I caught this like last time watching.
Yeah, definitely that I would say that's the one I was thinking of, and also just a big a big building. Joker's at the top of it. Batman has to go to the top of it to defeat him. One-on-one battle.
Mm-hmm. Insane. Anything else you caught? Like maybe that you didn't see earlier? Like you talked about the campiness. Maybe it's a little bit more campy than usual. We talked about it being a bridge potentially from like a Superman type of blockbuster to like the darker form of Batman we see today. Anything else stick out to you in terms of like, hey, I didn't really think about that before?
Yeah, I mentioned the origin Joker and Nicholson being more of the lead. Uh, not that I would just say this: it's always been in my mind. I'm just not a big fan of the look of Michael Keaton, Bruce Wayne. The
Okay,
hair,
let's talk about
just
this.
little short. I've never been a fan.
So
And
you be one of the guys writing the letter.
no, no,
Why do you think about it? God damn
no,
it! It's a
because like
joke.
I'm thinking like, well, I wouldn't have liked the casting.
Mhm.
I would have been like, okay, I'm open to it. Because would I be though? I
He
don't know.
doesn't look the part. I
Like,
agree.
I'm trying to think, like, who would be the Michael Keaton, like, if so, who would be the Michael Keaton casting of the Batman if Pattinson wasn't? Not like, who would it be?
Well, the people that were up for it, I just remember Nicholas Hoult being up for it. I don't remember
I
anybody
wouldn't have
else
been a
really.
huge outcry though, like because he
Yeah,
could fit that profile.
no,
Who's
that's
someone
what I'm
that doesn't
saying.
fit the Batman profile today on the comedy end that you're just, oh, Warner Bros. Is like, oh, they're the Batman next movie.
Well, I'm trying to think of like a lot of times, like you had Zack Snyder's castings of superheroes that are pretty controversial, like Momoa being cast as Aquaman and looking nothing like Aquaman. That was kind of controversial, but there wasn't really an outcry about it. You had Ben Affleck. That was pretty close. That was a pretty big outcry when he was cast as Batman.
Yeah, but he showed chops before, like the
But
town.
people, Ricky, but I would say people were upset when he was cast as Batman,
I
older
would say so
Batman, and
too,
he was coming off a really lackluster
but I guess what I'm saying is like,
acting prowess the last like 10 years,
yeah, but
aside
like,
from the town in Argo.
yeah, like you recently he was hot. He's
Yeah.
hot in the streets. I'm trying to think of a good comedic actor that has no experience in
Paul,
dramatic acting.
maybe people wouldn't trust Paul Rudd. People didn't see Paul Rudd as a
Paul
Marvel
Rudd
hero.
is a fantastic shout.
Yeah.
That that is a great shout. Like it would be like Paul
Like this
Rudd.
guy's a superhero. Yeah.
Yeah, but like the Batman, the darkest of the dark. I am the night. Like
But
Paul Rudd.
yeah, but I didn't know what people's expectations were because we weren't didn't grow up in like the 80s. Like, so how many people actually read like those Frank Miller comic books and they wanted to see it adapted, or did they have a connection with the 60s Batman? I just think they looked at Michael Keaton and they saw like this comedic actor, this curly headed dude who's very like short, and they're just like, do I trust this guy as seeing this guy I see in the comic book? This guy looks nothing like this dude. Why should I trust this guy? And I think he is smoother than the way he looks. He doesn't look like Val Kilmer as Bruce Wayne. Like Val Kilmer looks like Bruce Wayne.
Yeah,
You know,
he looks
Christian
perfect.
Bale looks like Bruce Wayne you see in a comic book.
More perfect.
Michael Keaton doesn't look that way. He doesn't look as great in the suit, but I actually liked his performance out of the suit more, and I like his ability, right, to kind of play that second persona, that one that is actually very smooth with Kim Basinger, despite him like hitting right a couple levels at like up from his league. I respected him in that regard. He did well.
Respect
But I think also it's like
on
this
and off the
Batman,
field.
it didn't require him to be this hulking beast that is also capable of such combat skills. Like you saw, that's one of my flaws of the movie. It's just the hand-to-hand combat is awful. It's a lot of times like one kick and the fight's over. So you didn't have to
Yeah.
rely upon that as much it's just like, oh, he's Batman, he's gonna kick this guy's ass. We just had to accept it back then. Like if that was the fight choreography coming today, like it doesn't make it past like the initial screeners at Warner Brothers, you know?
Yeah, definitely not.
But
I
yeah, go
I
ahead.
I think you're right. I just think that the resume speaks for itself. That's what gets people writing in. I think the look doesn't get people writing in because like you have costume design for a reason. You have all these different avenues to make people look the part. And they do with Michael Keaton in the bat suit because in the bat suit, he's good. He does the voice where he gets his voice deeper. That's the first time that ever happened.
Mhm.
And that obviously all the other Batmen do the same thing throughout after that. So they take that from Michael Keaton. Great in the suit. It's just, if you look at the resume, it's just like that's what makes you write into the Warner Bros. Studios to John Peters, producer, and be like, what the hell were you thinking? But again, like, I don't think he was bad. I just think when I see Michael Keaton, Bruce Wayne, I just don't see this guy as like a billionaire. I don't see him as, oh yeah, this guy is a superhero at night.
And he does no business in this movie. Like he does no, there's no Bruce Wayne dealings. There's no like, okay, you're head of Wayne Enterprises. It's just he's strictly
Right.
Batman. It's like what we saw with Pattinson's Batman,
Pattinson, yeah.
where it's like he is like neglecting his obligations, right, to Wayne Enterprises. Here, it's not even brought up. We actually don't see that until Batman Returns, and that's something I also question. I'm like, this guy is just he's just living off inheritance. I guess that's just what's happening.
Yeah, now that you bring up Batman Returns, I wanted to pose this question to you after this rewatch.
I don't know what he does in that movie either.
If you had to say what is a better movie, not more important, what's a better movie?
Man,
This Batman or Batman Returns?
because one of the problems I don't it's hard because the villains take center stage in both movies.
I
Right?
prefer obviously the Joker
I prefer I prefer Batman 1989 to Batman Returns.
I do too, but I feel like people are starting to turn, not turn, but I think people like Batman Returns as a movie better than Batman 1989.
Yeah,
And
it's
I just,
creepier. It's more Tim Burton.
yeah, and like DeVito, I don't like that as much. I don't like that. I rather have, okay, let's lean in on the villain, not creepy, but like just good acting, Jack Nicholson, and again, like we don't get the origin movie. We already have a fulfilled Batman who's good, very good in the bat suit. I'll take this one over Batman Returns. Unpopular opinion, but that's my take.
Yeah, Batman Returns pretty revolting to like look at those villains.
Yeah,
It's
like
like
DeVito.
it's
It's
even like
ugh.
Catwoman when she's being attacked by the cats. It's a lot. It's kind of brutal to watch and her getting cut up like that. And then you have Danny DeVito just walking around eating raw fish. It's like I rather like just give me Jack Nicholson as a Joker. Like I like Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman. I think it's
Yeah.
an iconic villainous performance, but
Mm.
it's not outdoing Jack Nicholson as the Joker. It's just not. And I don't care what people are saying now. It will never live up to those that high bar in my eyes. Okay. I just want to stay on Michael Keaton for a sec. Uh where does is he like I guess if we think we just divided up like him as Bruce Wayne, him as Batman, right? We said back with our Batman deep dive last year, we like, okay, this is the best Batman we ever saw in the bat suit.
Stand by that.
Okay. Where does Keaton rank as like an actual Batman? Like I would assume, like for me, he's still behind Bale, and in terms of in the Batsuit, he's probably behind Affleck too.
That's a good question. I think Pattinson's the best in the suit. I think Affleck's really good in the suit. It's just that he never got his own movie.
I don't love the suits that he
And I don't like the
wears.
style. Yeah, I don't still like the
Yeah,
style, the logo of the Affleck suit.
I love the Keaton logo, bro.
Yeah,
Maybe
it's
Keaton ahead of
I
Affleck, but
think
yeah,
I have Keaton at 2 in the suit because of the look. I just think the look works and the logo works versus an Affleck. And then I'm not even gonna count the 90s. I'm not or Kilmer and Clooney. I'm just not gonna even consider it. But and then Bale 3. But if you look at Bruce Wayne, like who's the best Bruce Wayne? Christian Bale still takes the cake. But then I'll take the 90s. I'll take Kilmer, Bruce Wayne as 2 probably.
wow, that's crazy.
I think I would over Michael Keaton.
I like Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne, dude. I do.
He just doesn't look like a billionaire.
Yeah, I get it. He doesn't look like it, but his like talk about the performance and the acting. I think he does. He's better, and like it's like obviously the look it plays an important role, an integral role in superhero movies, especially when they wear the costume and everything. That's why it's like okay, now I see why. Like Bale can't be second because the voice is so. It just draws your attention away from everything, right? So it's like Pattinson's always the favorite
Rachel.
in the suit. Keaton looks the best. Like the logo, it looks sick. I can't get over it. And I don't see the height as much as other people do. And then I don't know, it's 3 and 4 is mixed in with the other guys. But I like Bale is definitely the best Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bale's the best Bruce Wayne, right? Looks the part, acts the part, knows how to play that dual-sided type of character. Keaton, probably my number 2. Probably my number 2. Suave.
I would have to rewatch Kilmer. I think just like I think you bring up a good point with the acting, the actual acting. But like I'm thinking looks.
Yeah.
Like Kilmer looks the part. Like he
Yeah.
does. So that's why and I don't think like Clooney not a good Batman. But like he
You're bringing in guys like I don't even acknowledge those guys.
yeah.
Like, you're bringing it up like I didn't even think about Kilmer. He looks the part, but I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you have your ones. Bruce Wayne, best Bruce Wayne is Christian Bale. Best Batman, Pattinson. Keaton, closely behind both.
Okay. I'm trying to think of other things. Let's talk about box office a little bit here. So okay. So box office, it budget was $48 million. Ends up making over $400 million. It's the highest grossing movie film based on a DC comic book, and it gets dethroned in 2008 with The Dark Knight, which goes on to gross $1 billion. Batman held the record for being the highest grossing superhero film of all time until it was overtaken by Spider-Man in 2002. Okay. So that's a 13-year reign as right highest grossing movie. It's amazing that Spider-Man's only 13 years away from Batman 1989. And then it actually wasn't even the highest grossing movie of the year, Ricky Flex. That title belongs to Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. It made the most
Worldwide.
money globally in 1989. Domestically, Batman beats the Last Crusade and then makes another $150 million in home video sales, unshockingly.
Yeah, yeah. Like domestically, the Batman did beat Indiana Jones Last Crusade by like $50 million, 250 to like 200 million, I want to say. But like worldwide, like that makes sense. I didn't know that. That's actually a good fun fact. In Indiana Jones, Sean Connery, I guess that does help. Sean Connery, internationally, that probably helped worldwide.
Very interestingly, probably Michael Keaton's last performance as Batman, presumably in 2023, and also we're getting Indiana Jones's, Harrison Ford's
Yeah,
right last performance as Indiana Jones in 2023. Kind of wild. You want to get to scores real quick? You want to throw something out there for Batman 1989?
this was a tough one. Yeah, I think cultural significance plays a part in here. I think also like we wouldn't be where we are today without Batman 1989 for the good or the bad with superhero movies. I take them for the good, obviously as a comic book fan. 82.
Wow. Very nice. I'm going to go 77. 77. I'm usually the optimist here, Ricky Flex, but I'm accepting this movie for what it was, and it hasn't aged too well. Another flaw of this movie was the sound effects. They're really bad.
Visual effects, sound
Really,
effects, not great.
but it's make the sound effects like the guns popping as if it's like a 1940s film. It's bad. I get it. They're trying to like adopt that noir style, right? And some aspects it really works. Like when like you almost have like the Jack Nicholson channeling Chinatown with the flat hat at the beginning when he's talking to
Yeah,
Eckhart. I'm just like, damn, like it's kind of is that noir style, but then jumps into the camp a little bit and loses it. But sound effects with the guns, the bat wing, like when it's flying through the air, it just seems really, really outdated, even for the time period. Um, and I also want to I wanted to say something that came to mind as we're wrapping up here. I felt bad for Billy D. Williams every time I saw him on screen. I was just like, this guy was clearly wanted, right, for down the line, going to be Harvey Dent. He's coming off Star Wars, right? He's looking for that next big franchise to latch onto, and they did nothing with him here. And I thought the scenes he had, like he was really selling those lines. He was trying to tell you, like, yo, I'm gonna be a big deal later on, and just like every time I saw him, like, damn, like the only time he really gets to play Two-Face is in the Lego Batman movie.
oh my god, yeah, that is tough. That like Billy D. Williams is such a odd like situation because like you have Star Wars, you're known as the traitor, and you come back with this. It's like, oh, like this could be like a big villainous role for you in the next movie or whatever movie, and it just obviously studio meddling just never happened. Fast forward, was it 10 years, 9 years? Tommy Lee Jones just tough for him. That is a good point. I forgot about that.
And last thing here, kind of what drew my score down a little bit, this Prince soundtrack we didn't really go into. It's
Tough.
I think it's bad. I just think when this movie tone, like what drew me away from it, it's like it doesn't have a distinct tone. Like the Batman has the tone, right? It just knows what it is and it sells it to you. Here, you feel the commercialization of Batman 1989 with the Prince soundtrack. And like when you are trying to channel like this darker, gritty, like crime-ridden city, you can't have Party Man playing in the background. You can't have right Joker like dancing to other Prince soundtracks in the middle of the city. Like I know you're trying to have fun with the Joker character. He's unpredictable, and he's having fun while terrorizing the city, but not to a point where you can just be launching Prince songs on the ones and twos left and right. That's just it to me. It's just like this does not fit whatsoever.
Doesn't. Not at all. I'm glad you brought it up. I think you're a bigger Prince fan than me. It doesn't work whatsoever. It just doesn't. And again, this won an Oscar basically for production design of how dark Gotham is, and you're playing Prince throughout the movie. It just doesn't fit.
They just knew how big of a movie this was going to be once John Peters let out that trailer and the anticipation grew, the merchandise goes through the roof. Let's throw Prince on top of this. And then it just adds to all like the hype for the movie. And then
Money
it
talks.
obviously is a huge draw. And that's where 80s, soundtracks played a huge role into the box office. People like showing out at these movies. They want, like, you think of like Footloose, right? And think about what that movie and like a bunch of other blockbusters, and think of like Back to the Future with Huey Lewis. It's just like you could like promote these soundtracks with this artist and partner it with the film. That just doesn't happen today.
Right. Like, oh, Prince wrote songs for this movie. Like, if you want to listen to the new Prince song, again, MTV was big back in the 80s. If you want to listen to the new Prince song, you got to see the movie. You know, like that's a huge part of it. Music, absolutely huge. MTV, huge. And I do wish like we had more of that in today's day and age. We're writing more soundtracks, like actually writing songs for the movie, original songs, let alone like taking classic songs or reusing songs. But this is a classic situation where didn't work whatsoever.
Yeah, and I also read that they wanted Michael Jackson actually do the romance songs on the Batman soundtrack. So it's like, imagine having Prince and Michael Jackson partnering on a Batman soundtrack. Holy crap. Like, this would have made even more money. That's insane.
That is insane.
Okay. Any other thoughts on Batman 1989? Like, what is your hype going into him returning for the Flash? The reason we're doing this pod in the first place.
So I am hyped. I'm less hyped, I will say, just because that clip came out today
Oh
with
no.
Michael Keaton having that long gray hair. Didn't love that scene. Like soup. It's like he was like League of Shadows, like pre-League of, like I don't know, like that. I didn't like that. I
He
didn't.
looks like a Ra's al Ghul a little bit, you know?
Yeah, I that wasn't good for me, but it makes sense, like story wise. I think I'm still hyped for it. The Rotten Tomatoes scores, honestly, I'm just ready to see the movie. I'm done with James Gunn. All these people saying Tom Cruise, even this is the best movie I've ever superhero movie I've ever seen. This is gonna save cinemas or whatever. I'm just ready to see it.
Yeah, I'm done with the conversations about the movie. It's all about when push comes to shove, how is this perform in my eyes? I'm just ready for it. Michael Keaton, I'm excited for the action scenes. I'm excited for him, and I just need to see how um, Michael Keaton's Batman in the suit looks in 2023. I'm very, very, very hyped about that. There's something weird about seeing like older characters return to superhero movies, though, in a movie that doesn't fit tonally to what they were in before. It's just something off about it. It just rubs me the wrong way. So
Mm.
hopefully they can find that tone here. I know it's going to be a fun time at the theater, but is it going to honor the character in the world that Keaton built? Because obviously we are returning to the world of like Tim Burton in his Gotham City. Like, and apparently in that clip they talk about how it's one of the like one of the, I guess, safest cities. Gotham City's now turned into one of the safest cities in Bruce Wayne's world, Michael
Which is
Keaton's world.
hilarious.
I wonder how that's gonna look. Can you still honor the aesthetic? I'm curious about that.
But like, sorry, well, I don't mean to make it like the checkup, but like, honor the aesthetics. If it's one of the safest cities in the world, it's probably not going to be as dark. It's probably not going to look like Tim Burton's world.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Like, are you still gonna like? Is it still gonna be clear that it is that world? Like, it is that like that
Gotcha.
Gotham.
I see what you're saying.
You know, we'll see. I don't know. They could make it futuristic. They might give them a little leeway to do whatever they want. I would have
Right.
loved it if they just returned to like back in time
Yeah,
to
yeah.
that Gotham City.
Yeah, I was a little
But
disappointed today in that clip when he said that. I was like, "Oh, I want to see Batman in full,
yeah, that
not
was one.
full form prime, but like still ready to go, like
Yeah,
Dark Knight Returns form, I guess."
like we talk about Gotham City being a character in the Batman. It's the same way in Batman 1989.
For
100%.
sure, any Batman movie for the most
Like
part.
a city that just clearly riddled with corruption and crime. I love places like that where it's clear and it doesn't have to be explained to you like it is in the Nolanverse, for example. All right. That's going to do it for our deep dive and review on Batman 1989. And that's going to do it for episode 232 of the Drive-In Podcast. Make sure you are tuned into our feed. We have a lot going on right now. Earlier in the week, we did Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, spoilers and non-spoilers. And then we ranked our favorite Spider-Man movies of all time. You're not going to want to miss that podcast. Check it out now. We also, later in the week, we have the checkup and the trailer roundup. A lot of intriguing news points that have been coming up in the industry the last couple of days. Make sure you're going to keep up to date with us there. Also, next week, we're kind of up in the air what we're going to do. We're going to have our 10 bold predictions on Wednesday. We're going to have a special guest, a DC correspondent that'll be joining us to go through the 10 bold predictions for the Flash. And then we might be doing a little Arnold Schwarzenegger talk, right? We have the Arnold doc coming. Might see a little Transformers. We're leaving it up in the air. We'll definitely let you know what we're doing there. We'll report further on Friday. Make sure wherever you're listening, rate us 5 stars. Please leave us a review, right? If you leave us a review and it's good enough, we'll read it out in the podcast. And then also, if you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe. If you comment, we'll comment back. We like to talk to you guys. And make sure you're keeping up with all the latest movie news, not only on the Checkup, but also on our feed at Twitter at the Drive-In Pod, right? Wait, the Drive-In Pod.
The Drive-In Pod on all platforms.
And then also, yeah, obviously on Instagram. So that's going to do it for episode 232. Until next time, we will smell ya.